Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. Thank you for joining this webinar organized by No Deviation and Meria. Thank you for waking up or taking some time. We have about 100 people registered to this webinar, so we're going to wait a little bit that everybody come on board. Maybe another 5 minutes, and then we're gonna kick off. Everybody is on mute. That's a functionality, but you can ask questions. So if you go on your control panel, you have a question, and we will log those questions and answer them at the end of the webinar. But if you ask a question during the webinar, we'll try to keep an eye on it and highlight when we're talking about the specific topic. So maybe while waiting, you can, normally, if I configure this one properly, everybody at the end of the webinar will receive an email with a link for the recording of the webinar. So everything we say will be recorded, and you can access it online. And then there is the handout is also on right, left, depending on your phone or computer. In the control panel, you will find the handout. So if you go into it, you have two PDF documents. One document is the slide we're going to present today, and the other document is the overview of the software solution that was shared on LinkedIn. So if you want to have more information, they are available there. In case you do not download them or lose them, you can always contact me and I'll resend it to you. Yeah. But to avoid to send 100 emails, it's easier if you take it in from there. Also, because I know that some people joined earlier, maybe we're going to start and then the latecomer will ask more questions at the end. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to talk about environmental monitoring in the pharmaceutical industry. So I'm going to briefly introduce the two companies that have put this webinar together. There is No Deviation. So No Deviation is a Singapore-based company that was established in 2007, mainly focusing on the design, build, commissioning, qualification, and validation of pharmaceutical facilities and equipment and process. So the input of that design and build is really the process need and the patient need, and the outcome on that validation exercise should be the state of control of the manufacturing. And then we have with us Meria, an environmental monitoring and contamination control software. We're going to have a presentation of the company by Nicolas later, and the capability of the software, which is an off-the-shelf EMS solution. Derek is our senior commissioning manager. He was the Batman on the first picture, and then he decided to give me a real picture. So he is our senior commissioning manager. He's an expert in HVAC for all kind of building, and definitely for pharmaceutical building. Nicolas is the managing director of Meria, which is a Belgian company providing EMS solution, and I'm Pierre Winnepellings. I'm the CEO of No Deviation. So we have three parts in this webinar. The first 30 minutes, we'll try to describe what is a BMS. Then we'll explain why do data matters in the pharmaceutical world, and then we're going to go explaining what is the functionality of an EMS. And to make that a little bit more live, Nicolas is going to do the part two, which is going to be a 30 minutes of Meria solution and a live demo of the EMS software. And then after that, we will have 30 minutes of Q&A. So you, again, in the panel, on your right, your control panel, you can ask the question. And with us, we have Shan, who is going to help us with the logistic recording as much as possible, all the questions you are asking. And we will try to answer it in the last 30 minutes. If we don't have the time to answer all the questions, we'll follow up by email if you wrote down your question in that little box, but you can always shoot us some question by email after. So Derek, I'll let you introduce yourself and what is a BMS?
Okay, so as Pierre said, I'm the senior commissioning manager for No Deviation. This is my third stint in Singapore, and I arrived this time in 2015, and I just predominantly take care of the facilities and utilities commissioning of pharmaceutical buildings, but occasionally I do get involved in commercial work as well. So a BMS system is a computerized system that controls and monitors the individual utilities and fertility systems within a building. That building could be an office, it could be a warehouse, it could be a shopping mall, or for the purposes of today's discussion, a pharmaceutical facility. So the main thing, if you're talking about an office environment, is comfort. You want to have the thermal comfort within the space so that the people working there don't feel hot, cold, too drafty, too dry, too humid. And the control systems, the HVAC systems that control that, need to be managed. And that's where the BMS comes into play. So you can see in the graphic, we've got a temperature transmitter within the space recording the temperature of the room. If the temperature is too high, the BMS is going to inject some more cooling to bring the temperature back down, and that temperature will then feed back into the system to make sure that it stays in a state of control. So as I say, BMS is primarily existing to control the thermal comfort of a space, but it can cover greater areas. So you can see on the screen now the types of systems typically connected to a BMS. So you've got your chillers and cooling distribution, your heating generation and distribution, HVAC, be it for office spaces, technical spaces, or for the life safety systems such as smoke control and so on. You have your plumbing systems, your domestic water, or your irrigation. Then you've got your drainage and waste collection, and any compressed air. You can expand your system beyond typical mechanical systems into your facilities, and that way you bring in your fire detection and suppression, your access control, your CCTV, your lighting, and so on, lifts, generation, and so on, included in the system. If you start to do that, your system becomes much bigger. The amount of data collected is a lot greater, and the storage requirements are also, by virtue, much greater again. So if we go to the next slide, Pierre, thanks. So as we say, in summary, your BMS exists to control and manage your system. So all of your set points are programmed within your BMS. The scheduling, the time that the systems start and stop during the day or at the weekend is also controlled by BMS. It's constantly monitoring what's going on within the systems. And if you have any problems, it sends out alerts and alarms as necessary. You have security in the system by way of password control so that not everybody can access the system, and that gives you some safety that people aren't going to shut things down when they shouldn't be. The main outputs for a basic BMS system within a commercial office environment, as I say, is thermal comfort, fresh air, and carbon dioxide control and noise control so that you have a suitable environment in which to work. The outputs from the system come down to storing the data so that it can be reviewed for performance optimization. It can generate work orders for maintenance programs such as changing filters or calibrating sensors. Again, it's got restricted access to ensure that you have good data integrity and you know that all of your records are sound, and dependent on the client requirements, you will retain those records for a period of time. It might be 3 months, it might be a year. But that's dependent and driven by the client requirements, not by any specific governmental or regulatory requirements. So, yeah.
So now thank you, Derek, for the introduction of the BMS. And so I'll try to explain briefly, and I'm not good at doing it briefly, what is the difference between a shopping mall and a pharmaceutical facility. So what are the needs of pharmaceutical building or production building? So if in No Deviation, we like to put everything in related to our customer, and in this case, the customer is the patient. And so we have this pyramid where the patient sits on the top, and the patient needs a product The product is made by a process, and that process is made in facility, equipment, and SOPs. So if you go into regulation, and ICHQ 8 is where we can find those definitions, we define the quality target product profile is the patient need, is what do we need to give the patient to answer his need. And that's what defines the product we're going to make. And this product is defined by critical quality attribute. So it's a physical, chemical, biological, or microbiological property or characteristic that should be within an appropriated limit or range or distribution to ensure the desired product quality. And those critical quality attributes, we're going to build them in our process by controlling our critical process parameter, either by keeping those parameters within a certain value or by knowing the variability between the different parameters. In order to act on those parameters, which could be temperature, humidity, pH, oxygen, whatever could contribute to the quality attribute of my product, we will design in our equipment and facility some critical design element. Okay, so those elements will allow me to act on my parameter, to build the quality in my product, to deliver to my customer, the patient, the safety and quality of the drug he is looking for. That brings us to the importance of the state of control in a pharmaceutical manufacturing. So product testing is what we do generally to release a product. Now we need to understand that in the pharmaceutical, when I do a product testing, I destroy my product. So that means that if I create 1 million doses of vaccine or 1 million doses of pill, I will test 3 of those or 10 of those pills to assess the quality of the 1 million doses I didn't test. It also means that the product you are taking today when you are a patient, and we all are a patient at some point of time, was never tested. Okay? The product we're taking was never tested, and the product we test, we don't give it to the patient. So in that sense, the FDA came with a process validation guidance where they state that the quality cannot be adequately assured merely by in-process or finished product testing and inspection. So this means that we have the process validation, and the process validation is basically to demonstrate that all the pills that I'm making within my process and my facility have exactly the same attribute and quality as between each other, okay? So that the product testing of those 3 pills can represent the 1 million doses I didn't test. And so an effective process validation contributes significantly to assure the drug quality. And the basic principle is quality assurance versus quality control. Okay, I cannot rely on quality control. I need to build the assurance into my quality system. Now, the process validation work and demonstrate that all my products are alike also means that in the next 10 years of the life of my facility, I need to be in a state of control because what I have done intensively during the process validation need to be maintained so that hour after hour, day after day, year after year, I keep that quality assurance. So achieving the state of control is the key concept to reduce the product variability. And we don't want product variability because that will destroy your quality assurance. So to know your process variability, that should be a data-driven exercise. We need to measure and define what are all the data, and collecting all the data will allow me to achieve that state of control, maintain the state of control, and demonstrate the state of control. And once I demonstrate the state of control, I have the quality assurance. So it's really the data that allow me to demonstrate the quality assurance and to achieve the quality assurance. So recording is the evidence of our quality. And that's why for me, if you lose your data, you should lose your product because you have no assurance that this product was properly in control where we made it. And that shows us the importance of the data in the pharmaceutical process. So if I take the shopping mall or office building of Derek and I made it a clean room, and the reason I make it a clean room is because now I want to protect my product. I want to control the environment in which I'm going to produce the pharmaceutical product. So of course, I will need to have a BMS system that controls this environment like in a shopping mall. But the reason I'm doing here is to assure the quality assurance of my manufacturing process. And if you go in the regulation and what regulator world are the GMP, and I took one example, which is the FDA, but again, you can go in any GMP, you will find something equivalent. And they state that a system for monitoring the environmental condition need to be in place. And that's where our EMS come into the picture. And so the EMS is the environmental monitoring system. It is a GMP requirement, and this is what will give me the quality assurance that I was in control when I manufacture my product. So how does the EMS work? Well, the EMS will record the temperature and give me a series of alarms. I can configure those alarms based on my process need, okay? And those alarms will also be recorded, and those parameters that I'm recording, those critical parameters, will enter in the composition of my batch record to demonstrate that during that manufacturing, I was within my state of control. So this is really what an EMS is doing, is monitoring those parameters and giving us alert and alarm that will be recorded in our batch record. So I need to talk about data integrity. And for the people working in the pharma, I'm not going to bore you too much with the ALCOA because I cannot pronounce those 5 words properly. So I will try for you, which is attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. So what does that mean? We need to know who did what, when, and where in a simple form. Now, I like the MHRA definition of data integrity, which is a bit broader. The data integrity is the degree to which data are complete, consistent, accurate, trustworthy, reliable, and that these characteristics of the data are maintained throughout the data life cycle. And I really like trustworthy because that's something we cannot measure and is very well aligned with the quality assurance. And it's very difficult. It's more like a feeling than a measure. And I will explain a little bit what is consistent. So if we take our data life cycle, we have an electrical signal where the data is created and captured through a sensor. Now that data will go in our system, and that's where it is processed. So we're going to add to that electrical signal a meaning, which is all the metadata, which be the accuracy, it will be the temperature or the unit we want to give. It will be which probe I've recorded, so we know the location, which is where it is, and it will also give us the timestamp of when that measurement was taken. Then those data will be reviewed, in this case in our EMS, and will be derived in a report that will help me to take decision of whether my product is the right quality. Once this is done, we need to retain the data. And we need to be able to retrieve data either when we do an investigation in case of a product complaint or when we do a corrective and preventive action. And after a certain period of time, I will destroy my data. So what is consistent meaning? It means that from the moment I capture the data to the moment I destroy the data, my data need to tell me the same story. So from the moment I capture, I process, I review and report, or I retrieve the data, every time the data need to tell me the same story. And to be able to tell me the same story, it means that from the moment I capture the data, everything I keep need to be complete, otherwise the story will change. You know, it's a bit like the game we play when we are kids, and I tell you something and you tell it to the neighbor and you tell it to the neighbor. If you don't tell the complete story, well, we don't have a consistent story. And so building that properly is what will make our data trustworthy. That's why independently where I look at the data in the data life cycle, I will trust my data to take decisions that will affect the patient safety. So this is for me what is data integrity, and this is what we need to achieve when we record data to demonstrate our state of control. So we talked that the EMS monitor the temperature, the humidity, the pressure of the room, and that's part of our control strategy. And depending on the product and the process, whether it's a closed or open process, the criticality of those parameters will be assessed, and it will give us some alert and alarm. But you will also realize that an EMS take a lot of other measures than those temperature, humidity. The LIMS or laboratory system, the cold room, the fridge, the freezer, the incubator will help us to manage our microbiome and will somehow enter in that holistic approach about the environmental monitoring system. And of course, the particle monitoring system, whether the non-viable and viable particles are really important in the pharma to demonstrate the clean room, are also part of the amount of data I need to make decision whether I was in control or not. So you can see here that the environmental monitoring is a series of record and data that will make a whole, allowing us to take decision. So an EMS is an input to the batch record, therefore it's part of our pharmaceutical quality system. It's a validated system. I talk about data integrity. We will need to do periodic review of those data to make sure that we stay in the state of control. And that's really the beauty of doing periodic review, is not to talk about the alarm that happened, is to try to proactively avoid the system to lose control. It needs to have a restrict access, because if I don't restrict the access, I won't trust my data. Okay. Therefore, we have a stringent control. And then I take an example again of the FDA. The record must be retained for at least 1 year after the expiration date of the batch. So if your batch can have a stability of 10 years, well, you need to keep the record 11 years. If your batch have a stability of 3 years, you need to keep your record for 4 years. So you need to keep those data for a very long time after they were captured. And from the time they were captured during all those years, you need to have that data life cycle, and you need to be able to trust those data. So the EMS will look at everything which is critical, which touch the quality. So it's critical environmental condition, and you can add those based on your process need. It's critical equipment that we can plug on an EMS system, which are the fridge, freezer, incubator, isolator, particle counter. And the function is really to record, monitor, alert, alarm, give some notification, support the corrective action and preventive action and investigation. And we need to have an audit trail so that we can know who did that, who did what, when and where, or ALQA of all the data recorded. So between what I say and what Derek says, you see that there is some overlap between a BMS and an EMS system. Now, you also have other systems in the pharmaceutical world. So the two first column is really your BMS system, like Derek have mentioned it for an office or a shopping mall or any facility. Now, when you put the process inside, sometimes you have a DCS, which will control the process. Sometimes for small facility, your pure steam, your processed water, your processed air generation could be linked to the BMS, because we don't want to invest in another control system. The HVAC is really the core value of your BMS in the pharmaceutical world. And then we can put the cold room. All the things that are in pink could affect the quality of my product, and therefore I need to record and monitor those critical process parameters, like for example the water conductivity or the total organic carbon into my EMS software. So we like to separate it like that. We try to keep it simple. Whatever is business essential will be on your BMS, and whatever is process critical will be on your EMS, because of the data integrity you need to have to demonstrate the quality. And of course, by demonstrating the quality and having the data integrity and doing what is right for the patient, you're going to be compliant. Okay. So the compliance for me is a byproduct of doing what is right for the patient. If you always do what is right for the patient and you can trust your data, you're going to be compliant. If you just try to be compliant, you're going to miss a lot of things to build into your quality assurance. So that temperature probe that a lot of people say, well, you know, I have a temperature probe for my BMS. Why can't I use it for the EMS? Well, you can, okay, but it's good to have two separate systems because that allow you to keep the business and the process separate. It will also allow you a big benefit to control what you record. Okay, if you put two separate probe, you know, you control with your right hand and you record with your left hand, which could give you some discrepancy. So if you control what you record, it's always easy. It will also allow you to align the tolerance and accuracy of your system to your system capability. And the tolerance is driven by your process need and not by your system capability. It will reduce the maintenance cost because you will have, in this case, only one probe to calibrate. And then it will reduce the validation cost because you only need to validate what's in the pink and you have a clear physical separation in that signal splitter, which is that pink box you're seeing there. It will reduce the human error. It will help with the compliance and the quality by design by segregating the access, because the fire alarm is not the same access level as your water conductivity or your fridge and freezer that are used to demonstrate the stability of your product. So this is how it look in your clean room. That's the most efficient way, where you can see that BMS and EMS are not really independent software. They should be interdependent. They should be designed and synced together, but they have clear different functionality. Again, one is business critical, the other one, or business essential, the other one is quality critical. On that, I will try to give the control to Nicolas, who is going to present the EMS solution that is Meria. Nicolas,
Pierre,
are you with us?
Yeah, I'm there. But you better keep the control for the slide, and I will take the control for the demo.
Sure.
So thanks, Pierre and Derek, for this nice presentation. So I guess now for all the people in the virtual room, it's quite clear that we need to keep BMS and EMS separated. And now I will present our Meria EMS, which is really dedicated to the monitoring of the critical parameters of your process. So I'm Nicolas Gilson. I'm managing director of Meria. Meria company has been founded in 1993, and we started the first version of Meria in 2006. The company is made of an R&D team, of course, that keep improving the solution and bringing new functionalities to the market. We've got also a regulation watch, which is really important to keep the solution ahead and being aligned with the regulation. And we have a QA team. You need to understand that when a product is released by our company, it is already qualified. So for the people that know it really well, we consider the product to be off the shelf. Meaning that this is a GAM5 category 4 product. So the bulk of the work has been done by my team. And when you go on site, you just need to execute the IQ/OQ to what you have configured in the system. We will discuss about it a bit later. So we work with a certified partner only. We have a partner community. Of course, No Deviation is part of this community. And if you are interested to know a bit better about your local expert, please just go to the meria.com website. You'll have all the needed information there. Yeah. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. Also interesting to mention, the solution is well suited for different kind of industries. So we've got customer in the hospital, the cosmetical, and also the pharmaceutical industry, of course. We have a big pharma customer like GSK, Baxter, Behring, but also we have a small biotech or ATMP companies, which shows that the solution is really a scalable solution that fits to different kind of pharmaceutical industries. It is deployed a bit all over the world, starting from the USA to Singapore. We've got a lot of references also in Europe. We used to say, yeah, it's okay. We can go to the next one. So we used to say that we have a global monitoring solution. So why do we say global? Because first of all, we monitor all the critical parameters of the environment. So we speak about temperature, pressure, cascade pressure, humidity. But here we can also monitor any kind of numerical value, like the TOC we speak about before. It can be included in the system. We also monitor the equipment, like fridge, freezer, incubator, isolators. This can be done in the system. Another way, we say also it is global because we bring a lot of functionalities. We try to be exhaustive in the functionalities we offer to our customers. For instance, we've got a microbio sampling module, which is full digitalization of the microbio sampling process, which is also available. I will not show it today. If you are interested in it, just give a call to Pierre and he will give you more information about it. And the last thing about the global aspect of Meria is that we can manage your room, your site, your facility, your site, everything in the same system. If you go to let's say a lot of the architecture that you can see in the pharmaceutical industry about EMS, we used to see a lot of different systems. Pierre spoke about it. We used to see PMS, so particle monitoring system. We used to see data loggers, LIMS, EMS, SCADA solution. And usually we end up with a kind of patchwork with a lot of distinct solution, which is not at all easy to manage. So the idea with Meria, if you go to the next slide here, is to have one single solution to manage all your critical parameters, whatever the instrument you need to manage. So Meria is what we say an agnostic solution that can connect to any kind of instrumentation. So you end up with one single solution, standardization of report, and you can make your solution evolve according to the regulation, knowing that we keep aligning the functionalities of the system with the expectation of the regulators. Okay. So this has been addressed extensively in the previous presentation, the difference between BMS and EMS. So as we said, we better keep EMS and BMS separated. Something that Pierre did not address is that BMS is a really extensive solution with a lot of functionalities, but also it's not easy to qualify. So you better have a dedicated solution on the EMS side that is already qualified, and you can just take advantage of the fact that it has been qualified before. So it's a lot more costly to use a EMS solution for this aspect. And also EMS are used to be built to be really robust solution. This is the core of the system. We speak about data integrity. That's really what matters, and EMS are really best solution for this kind of issue. Another in the next slide, another thing that you need to understand is that there are also EMS solutions that are built on SCADA, that are a solution that does both the controlling and the monitoring of the parameters. It's also like BMS, I guess. You better keep them separated. And also with this kind of solution, you are more, you have a platform and you have developers that need to develop on it. With EMS solution like Meria, you just need to configure the solution. So you do not depend on developers for your project, for your maintenance later. So it's really interesting to know that you just need to do a configuration. It can be done on your own. The customer can do it on its own. It's quite easy. There is a configuration console, or it can delegate it to the certified partner. That's a choice. But at least it's quite easy to do, and you do not depend on a really skilled resource that will not be available at the time you need them. Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. One more slide there. As we said already, so we manage particle counters. We can manage fixed particle counters, but also mobile. We've got advanced feature for mobile particle counters. So I will not go too much in the detail, but knowing that you can just at some point in time upload your campaign, and it will be fed in the system as if it had been taken in real time. And so once again, you'll have a full data integrity, and you'll be able to draw your report at any time. So really interesting features. And you can see that we bring all the information together in the one single system. And I will show it during the demo. It will be easier to understand. And I guess I get still one slide before the demo. Yeah, putting Meria in the global landscape. So you see that the EMS is quite close to the BMS, so they need to live together. That's clear. as Pierre says, we can either share the same sensors for the temperature, for instance. That's a design choice that you can take. We can have different sensors. So we have the two approaches that can be compatible. Also, the Meria EMS is connected to data lake. So Meria is its own historian, but if you want it, you can export information to a solution like OSIPy. And also, finally, we integrate with a MES solution like we're on to start a batch, for instance, or fetch batch record information related to the environment. This is kind of standard integration with a solution like Meria. We are agnostic. I already spoke about it, so we can connect to any kind of instrumentation. We provide a native plugin to integrate with particle counter. We've got a lot of connectivity capabilities. So don't worry, we can mainly connect to any instrument that you will already have on your facility or that you would like to have in the future. This will be available with Meria. So is it okay? Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so you just enter into Meria. So you are already logged in. This is a CFR 21 Part 11 compliance solution. So everything that we will do in the system will be traced. And you are on a map that gives you an high-level overview of the system. So what you've got on the map there, you've got your sensors with a really simple color code, which is if it's green, it means that everything is okay. If it's orange, there is a warning. If it's red, that's bad. There is an alarm, and meaning a deviation. And we've got also a gray color code, which means that there is a technical issue because the system monitors itself. And so if there is, for instance, a connection loss with a sensor or a redundant I/O server that is not available anymore, you will receive also an alarm there with a gray color code. This can be customized according to your need. Once again, this is a configurable solution, no development, but if you want to change it, please just during the project, you set up your requirement and it will be easy to change. So I will go quickly through the basic functionality. So if I want, for instance, to navigate, I can just from one room to the other, I can just zoom in the map and I will go to the other room and we'll have more details. You can see, for instance, that in this case, I've got a mobile, I've got a particle counters available on a table. And I will go to the standard menu. Of course, the main thing that we do with a solution, an EMS solution, is going to the alarm screen. So do we have a running alarm at this point in time? And we have two running alarms that you can see in red. If there are alarms, you can be notified by mail, by SMS. We can also start a buzzer in the facility, or we can light a beacon. Everything is possible there. But of course, you can see in this screen what are the current alarms. Other standard screen is the unacknowledged alarms. So you will see all the alarms that occurred in the system and that have not been acknowledged. So you see, for instance, there is a pressure measure here that is not acknowledged. This is not anymore an alarm, but I need to acknowledge it. This is a GMP requirement. So I just enter a command, free command or predefined command. I click on validate, and this is acknowledged. So let's go now to more advanced functionalities. So if I go to the tree view, for instance, you can see that we can manage all your room. It can be labs, it can be a production area, storage, warehouses, whatever you want. You can monitor them with Meria. But also you can monitor multiple buildings, multiple sites, everything in the same system. And based on the privilege that you've got, you will have access or not to the different rooms. So I will navigate now to the no deviation building. We are in the no deviation building. And you see I can navigate through the different section. And here I've got downstream process area that I will drill in to show you a bit more information. But before explaining you what's happening there, I will start a batch. So let's imagine now that we just start a new batch and that we want all the data that will be measured in the continuous monitoring system. We want all the data to be linked to the batch. So what I will just do, I will start a batch. So I will do it manually. So let's say the batch number is 804. The product name is no deviation 200. The product number is no deviation 200. And then I will say, okay, at the same time that I start my batch, I want to make sure that all my particle counter are started. So I will start the particle counter. and click on validate. This action that I've done manually now can also be done by an external system like an MES. This is integration possibilities. And now we'll get back to the batch later at the end of the demo to show you what happened on that side, and I will explain you a bit more about what we see here. So you have all the sensors. So you see that we manage the particle counter the exact same way as we manage the other sensors. If I want, I can just have a trends chart that are live updated. Interesting feature. And also, I can see the detail of what's happening in my particle counter, because you can see that it is in alarm. So why is it in alarm? In fact, you can see that there are 2 channels that are okay, but I've got the airflow of the particle counter that is in alarm. And this alarm is propagated to the particle counter. And because there is an arrow there, by configuration, we decided that it was really, really important, and we wanted it to be propagated to the room. So you see that the alarm is propagated to the room. Okay. Another way to navigate now to the system, if you know really well your system, you just key in a keyword here. Let's say that I want to have information about my my governing area, and in the governing area I've got a sensor, and I can directly go to the sensor. Also interesting to mention, you can link, for instance, your documentation. Let's say that you've got SOP related to your pressure sensor. You just add it here, and you will have a link to your SOP. We manage also the calibration, so you can enter the calibration certificate, the validity date. So it's really interesting also for your maintenance or for your reporting, or to generate alarm if there is no if the sensor are not calibrated anymore. And also, if I look at the properties of these sensors, you see that we manage alarm, as I said, warning, and we manage 2 sets of threshold. Of course, we manage delay. It can be interesting for pressure sensors to make sure that we do not have an alarm every time we open a door. And we manage, as I said, 2 sets of threshold. So this was a question that we received prior to the presentation. So if you want to, for instance, to have a operation mode, like I'm in production or I'm at rest, and you want to switch from one to the others, it will be quite easy. You just click on switch to the second alarm threshold set, and you just enter your command, and you will switch to the other threshold. Also, you can ask it to, just by ticking this box there, to switch back to the previous threshold at some point in time, to make sure, for instance, that you do not forget to start your monitoring when you will be in production. This can be done automatically. And behind the scene, it creates a task. In fact, it will create a task, an automatic task that will be executed, which leads me to the next module that is also worth to mention today. This is the task manager. So we have in the solution a task manager. So you can say that there are a lot of task manager out there, but this one has really the benefit to be linked to the room, of course, but also to be fully qualified. So I can create a task, for instance. Let's say that I want to create a decontamination task that I will assign to this room. This is a decontamination. The due date, let's say it is to Saturday for Monday, and I will assign it to myself. It will be easier. I will not make it recurrent. I just click on save, and I've created a task. So at some point when I will have executed this task, I just need to say, okay, it has been executed. So just click on execute task. And at any time, you will be able to draw a report if you want to look at all the tasks that have been executed, and you will have a qualified report that can be used later on for any regulation needs, for instance. Also, I will get back to my downstream area to show you something that I've not shown you until now. I got a temperature sensor here that we will look at. And you will see that the background is a bit different than what you used to see in the previous screen. So you see a color code also on the background of these trends, which means that there is something going on. In fact, we have applied there what we call a predictive maintenance module that will use statistical information to assess the behavior of the sensor. So if there is something that might go wrong, so we say that might, this is not a warning, this is not an alarm, but something that might go wrong in the system, we receive a kind of notification. So this is a first step in the predictive maintenance. This is also something that will be really interesting for your periodic review. So Pierre spoke about it before, but rather than just focusing on the alarm, you can also focus on what might happen in the future to really make sure that you are in a state of control. So let's get back to my batch now. I see all the batches that are going on now, and you remember that we started at the beginning of the demo, we started the batch 804, so it is there. It is now finished. I have made my production. So I just close the batch. Once again, can be done by an external system. I will also choose to stop the particle counter because it's really noisy. I just click on validate, and my batch is finished. So if I want to look back at all the batches that are running now, that have been executed, sorry, I will find here my batch. And if I want to have a report, I just click on show the report there, and you will see a graph with all the measurements that were linked to my batch that are available here in this screen. I might, of course, be interested more in the alarms. So let's just draw the alarm report, and you will see all the alarm that we had during this batch. Okay, there are a lot of alarms. This is simulated data, but at least everything is recorded and available in this report. Let's say that you want to export it. You can export it if you want in a PDF or CSV, Excel, whatever you want. Let's say I will do it in PDF. I want the graph and alarm, graph and data, graph only. I will pick the graph and alarm. I just click on save, and you will have quickly appearing there a new report that I will open with all your sensors with a color code. You will see your chart, and you will see all the alarm with a fully qualified reports. So this is it for the really quick tour about Meria. I wanted to show you a feature that might be of high interest, I think, for your monitoring environment solution. And now we can get back to the slide. So Pierre, if you can take over.
So thank you, Nicolas, for the demonstration. I think there is a lot of functionality that are linked to our quality assurance exercise that are built in an EMS. And the idea of demonstrating the functionality of an EMS is to say, well, building all those functionality as a bespoke solution on the BMS software is quite challenging, right? So that's why we those two, although there is this temperature monitoring in both software, there is clearly a difference between the functionality we want to give with the two. We also say we're going to discuss a little bit about the validation of the software. Again, there is because it's a software, it falls into the game category, and we're not going to describe all the game here, but there is some, what we want to show is so this is the architecture of the Meria solution, correct? And so that's where we can build redundancy and have those data integrity building, because from the moment I capture my signal, I need to have that complete data set.
Yeah. So there were a question of, yeah.
So it's more for the geek people that want to know the hardware part, and we can discuss that. Is to show how a typical Meria solution is developed and where we build the redundancy of the data.
So it's worth to mention that we build the redundancy at two levels. So we build it at the PLC level and also the IO server level, so to ensure really great robustness. And then I will all the information for later, but okay, that's what is interesting there.
And then there is possibility to do revamping, you know, to upgrade to a Meria solution, and because it's hardware agnostic, and that's where when you go to an off-the-shelf solution where you only have configuration, the deployment is relatively fast and easy. Because the validation on site is just to confirm that the configuration meet the intended use. So if we have defined the intended use, and that's always very important, is to define the intended use and the process need, it's easy to configure the software to record and maintain that. So Nicola have talked about the calibration management that could be built into the EMS software. Again, big sites generally they will have a module that manage all the calibration. But if we go in smaller facility like the ATMP, which are a lab evolving into a GMP functionality, those things could be built in your EMS software. And this is the configuration tools that you will get with Meria, which allow the scalability of the software and the configuration, and all those configuration have an audit trail, so we know what was changed and when. So we need user requirement to configure properly, but once it's configured, adding a probe or adding a particle counter or adding an equipment, it's all done at this configuration level, and it's using validated functionality, and our validation of the software solution is just to make sure that the right configuration have been implemented and that the signal is coming fully into the software. And the same with alarm activation. So Meria come with that tool to do the configuration of the software, and that's really the value you put in there is what you need to validate. You can, because Nicola showed you a map, you can put whatever you want. You can put picture and put your, you know, to make it user friendly for your operator. You can also display those anywhere in your facility, because again, the more visible you make it, the more quality ownership you will have from your operator, and they will, you know, proactively. It's one thing to have the alarm. The other thing is to know what to do when we have an alarm and to make sure that that alarm is visible. So this is what the EMS should be doing to extract the critical information for people to take the right action for the process. So this is how it looks once it's configured. So now we're going to go in the Q&A. I think I'm going to hand it over. I'll try to give it to Shanshan, which have collated most of your question, so that we can read all together the question and try to answer them. Shanshan, are you still with us?
Yeah, those questions are already in, so you can present.
Okay, so
yeah, so a couple of questions were already answered. If you see a tick in front of the question, that's already answered. So that's just a reminder to all of us. If you have the same question, you can refer to our chat or question session.
Okay, let me open the question. So the question is, EMS should be categorized as a configurable type computer as system and continue with the configurable software development and testing to be included in the CSV. What are the configurable elements and how it should be CSV? So for Nicola, I've answered those. For us, it's a GAM5 category for software. So there is a series of IOQ, but the whole coding and development of the software have been fully validated and code according to the GAM category. So that's ideal, because that's how you can speed up the deployment and increase the quality assurance. The other benefit of having you know, an off-the-shelf software is that this software was not only tested in your facility, and you have a team that maintain it up to date and continue to do the a requirement, which is a continuous improvement as per the pharmaceutical quality system. So if you go in ICHQ 10, you say we need to have continuous improvement. Well, if you have a software supplier that keep that continuous improvement for you, you can focus on your manufacturing operation. Now, if you decide to develop your own software, which is also possible, you need therefore to do the continuous monitoring and upgrading your software. So if you have more questions on that, we can go into detail of the Meria configuration and validation, but here it's really to demonstrate that we're going to validate the EMS. We're not going to do the same for the BMS. The redundancy will be monitored by an external system. So Meria have a sanity check on their own system and communication, and the redundancy is built from the capture of the signal into the PLC, and then we have a redundancy in the I/O server. There are possibility to put two PLC, but again, you need, the ICHQ9 tell you that the level of effort needs to be proportional to the level of risk. So we can make an assessment there based on the criticality of the signal you try to capture, but generally PLC are robust enough.
Yeah, So because the question is also if it can be monitored by external systems, so the answer is yes. So the system can generate an alarm and propagate it to other system if needed. There are advanced features there. So if you want to make sure that an other system like an EMS or so alarm monitoring solution can raise an alarm if there is an issue with the EMS, those are standard things that we can do also. So external system monitoring our own solution.
Okay. Any alarm notification would send when one of the redundancy systems fail. So I believe you have the alarm Meria can be connected to SMS or email or any other communication system, correct?
Or digital output, for instance, can be sent also to another system just to understand that there is something wrong.
Okay. Need more detail about how the redundancy of the system works, so we can address this one offline and contact you and give you more detail of how we can do that. The hardware compatibility, again, it depends on which EMS solution you're taking. Meria is hardware agnostic, correct?
Yeah, really hardware agnostic. So if we speak about the instrumentation, so we can manage any kind of instrument. And then you've seen quickly in the architecture slide the kind of PLC that we can manage and the fact that we also rely on a SQL server. So you understand that it depends on the Windows, and which is quite standard in the pharmaceutical industry. We also have LDAP integration capabilities. So if needed, we can go further in this description later. Offline.
Okay. Need more detail about the data storage through third-party software and third-party software requirement. I don't quite understand the question. Maybe Nicolas?
If I understood properly, so first of all, you need to understand that if we speak about Meria, we have our own data historian. So we manage to restore the data in Meria itself. It can also be exported to a third party like OSIPI, for instance. You just extract the information and you fed or fetch data in the other system, if it's what I understand. This is also quite standard. But we have our own data historian solution directly in Meria. So you can already draw your own report that you have configured that are easily managed, like the configuration. So it's really easy. You don't depend on the data warehouse team to build your report. All those are available out of the shelf. So, but you can integrate with third parties. This happens also in big installation.
And so what is the industry practice pertaining to the control measure for the BMS? And I think we have a question asking on the next page if we need audit trail on BMS. So maybe Derek, you can explain a little bit with your engineering.
Well, I suppose that depends. It depends on what you mean by control measures. If you're talking about sort of compliance and qualification control, then the BMS doesn't have it. This is specifically why we're talking about EMS systems today, so you can avoid having those extra control measures within the BMS. If you're talking about the control parameters in terms of temperature, humidity, that is going to be entirely dependent on the process that you're serving. If it's an office environment, you're going to be controlling 23, 24 degrees and 50-60% humidity. If it's a clean room, you might be down at 18 degrees and 30% humidity, depending on what the product requirements are. So if you can clarify the question a bit more, we can be a bit more specific with the response.
Because the BMS is what controls the temperature, I think when we do a change of set point in the BMS, you know, or change of control in the BMS, keep in mind that the EMS just monitors, so it will tell you whether you were right or wrong. The BMS will make it happen. Yeah. So any change in the BMS system need to have a engineering change control and an assessment whether we are touching quality area, and therefore a discussion need to be engaged with the QA of the site of how this is going to be executed and closed.
Sorry, you said there was a question about audit trail. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I think I saw it, but maybe I ask you the question and just answer. Do you have an audit trail on your BMS, and if yes, why?
Because you still need to see who's accessing the system. You need to know who made changes. So even if it's not a qualified environment that's being served, you don't want somebody changing your office set point to 18 degrees because it's going to have an impact on your energy usage, and your building's going to be running less efficiently, and you're going to be spending more money to overcool it. So you need the control to ensure that you can see who's got the access, have the right people got the right level of access, and if somebody makes a change, you need to see that change, because there might be an issue and they make a temporary offset to a temperature just to accommodate, say there's a big meeting in a boardroom and they want the temperature to be set lower for that period of time, but then they forget to reset the value afterwards. If you've got the audit trail, you can see who changed it, when they changed it, and then you can make sure you address with them the fact that if they make those changes, they bring it back again. Obviously, in a qualified environment, you don't want people making changes without having a change control in place, so it's a slightly different situation.
So the EMS must generate sequence of events, start and stop and change of room operation mode. Typically when you go in cleaning or when you go in maintenance, I think it's very important to be able to, under a control procedure, to inactivate alarm, because you don't want to have any spurious alarm. Like we say, if everything is critical, nothing is critical. If you have too many alarms, you don't see the important alarm. So Meria have the possibility to have different alarm threshold, which you can base on the activity in the room, correct, Nicolas?
Yeah, exactly. So we have those thresholds I've shown you during the demo. And also if you want to set the system in decontamination mode, like you don't want to have any other alarm at all, it's possible. We will keep the continuous monitoring. So we will keep monitoring the information all the time, but you can decide if you have alarm or not, and what kind of threshold you want to apply. And we've seen it a bit during the
for data integrity, it's important that you keep monitoring. For example, if you forget to reset the alarm in production mode, but you still have the data integrity, so you can still retrieve those data and retrieve those data and reprocess. It's changing the alarm condition. I think Meria also can start and stop those modes automatically, or a timer, so you can say, I start the cleaning, therefore I have 30-minute cleaning, and after it will automatically goes in the threshold one, which avoid the human error. Unreasonable alarm delay time could be a DI issue, totally agree. Does the system allow the delays of the alarm? Nicolas, can you delay an alarm in Meria?
So can we delay an alarm? We can have a delay. So we can say, for instance, that for the pressure or any kind of sensor, we can have a delay. This is something that I've shown in the demo. So you set your threshold, and let's say that you have a pressure sensor there. You can say that there is a delay of 30 seconds, and you won't have any alarm during the first 30 seconds.
And for me, that's really a good question, because it shows that, you know, the system is part of the control and the monitoring, but the commissioning and the capability of the BMS is what's going to lead you to increase delay, because you cannot recover fast enough. Yeah. So typically you can see that in terms of pressure, if your system cannot recover the pressure fast enough, or people will tend to increase the delay of alarm. That's not a good practice, because you end up in this kind of watermelon situation, like everything looks great, you have no alarm, but actually you are not in control. Yeah. So for me, you need to address the root cause of why you are having alarm, and not creating a longer delay. So definitely a good practice when you do your commissioning and validation is to say, what is the what is the science behind the delay of the alarm, and is that reasoning in line with our process tolerance? That's what we need to do when we configure and validate the system.
So that is part of what we do when we do the commissioning of the system anyway. We fine tune those parameters so that we know what the minimum time should be.
Yeah, based on the, so normally the alarm delay is based on the process need, yeah, and the system capability need to be aligned on that process need. The EMS alarm report is possible. Third-party sensor can be configured. I think you addressed that one. Alarm report you will have. You can export them. Now, beware in terms of data integrity. Meria will allow you to expose those things in Excel and CSV. As soon as you do that, you lose the data integrity because you don't have any audit trail of any of those change. But you can also export those data into the data lake and on the controlled ways and keep the data integrity there. What is the software name of BMS and EMS? So the software name of EMS, I think we say it enough. It's Meria. Derek, maybe you have some experience of BMS in the market, maybe in Singapore, that you've been using to
well, the most recent project I did had CARE, which I found very easy to work with. But there's lots of other suppliers out there.
So if you have any question and you have any need on the BMS, you can contact Derek and he can definitely point you in the right direction. Do we foresee any major change in the EMS infrastructure and the Internet of Things? Yes, we do. I think Meria is one of the examples because it's a web-based application. You can treat this information, and we have the way we look at data is surely something that's going to change. So we have a series of proof of concept working on machine learning of how to treat our EMS data to just not look at the trend in isolation. So yes, that's something that's going to change. How you're going to validate it, how it's going to shake down the quality mindset, I guess we will know in the next coming year. Yeah. Audit trail is available on BMS. Yes, we do. I think it's important to have an audit trail again to know who did what, when, and where. Because if all of a sudden your temperature change in a room, you want to know which of those setting change happened that lead to this. Yeah, especially if you have a control environment like a clean room, you want to make sure that you can always go back to what happened and make your history and make your kappa.
Pierre, you probably need to exit the slideshow. Otherwise, you can't see the you can't see the update.
There's more questions come in, so you need to step out of that one and bring it back in again.
Exactly. And there's one more I highlighted in yellow, so it's very easy for you to read.
Yes, I see that.
We don't.
Oh, well, you see that now?
Yeah.
Yes.
The alarm notification can be sent from BMS or EMS system. Yes, both systems can. Like if you have fire alarm, you don't contact the same people as when you have an out of quality alarm. Yeah, so both systems.
But also you can have quite often you find a situation where the alarm limits for the BMS and the alarm limits for the EMS are not the same. So you should be getting a notification from your BMS before you go out of compliance, before you go out of control. So there'll be one set of notifications that go to the BMS technician to say you've got a problem with your HVAC. There'll be a different alarm that goes out to the operators to say your EMS is out of control. So you should be getting two lots of notifications anyway.
Okay. I think we cover. I hope we cover most of the question. If we don't have any further question, if you have more question, just ask. Otherwise, again, you can contact us. You can drop us an email, and we'll follow up with you. Thank you all for joining the webinar. Just for Everyone, you have the handout, which is in your control panel of GoToWebinar. So you have 2 documents you can download. You will have all the slides in PDF, and you will have the Meria leaflet to get some more product information. You can go on the No Deviation website or on the Meria website, and you can contact us if there is any more question. You're gonna receive at the end of this webinar normally an email with a link to the recording and a little survey so that we can improve for our next webinar. And if you are interested in those kind of webinar, you can follow us on LinkedIn, and we hope to be able to have those kind of session every 2 weeks on different topics.